Good evening. I'm Tricia Crowley of the League of Women Voters of Champaign County. On behalf of the League, the NAACP, the News Gazette, and Illinois Public Media, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. And this forum is to fill the office of judge to fill the vacancy of Michael Jones. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are unfortunately not presenting this forum in person. Consequently, we are not accepting questions concurrently with the forum. I urge you to submit your questions for the rest of this week's forum via email, phone, or directly from the form on our website. Our website is lwvchampaigncounty.org. Similar questions which have been submitted have been grouped together, and consequently, your question may not be asked in precisely the way you submitted it. Due to limited time, we may not be able to get to all of the submitted questions. This forum will be available on the League's YouTube channel and will also be broadcast by UPTV. UPTV schedule is available on the City of Urbana website. The video of this forum will also be available on the Vote Champaign website with the candidates' other information. The order for the candidates is alphabetical, and therefore Sherry Kessler, Republican, will open and Ramona Sullivan, Democrat, will close. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. I will then ask questions submitted prior to the forum, and each candidate will have 1 minute to answer these questions. At the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates will kindly refrain from negative attacks on the other and speak only to what they plan to do if elected to office. And so we will begin. And Ms. Kessler, your opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to speak tonight, and I appreciate all the work the volunteers and the sponsors have put to have this event and the creativity in adapting this event to these difficult circumstances. My name is Sherry Kessler, and I'm running for Resident Circuit Judge of Champaign County. I've been married 21 years to my college sweetheart and have 3 teenage children. My family is somewhat unique. My 2 oldest children are adopted, and my family is multiracial. I grew up right here in Champaign County, and I chose to make Champaign County my home. I have volunteered in a variety of community organizations and have had a private practice for a number of years in a variety of areas, including family, adoption, guardianship, estate, real estate, criminal, traffic, municipal law, civil litigation, juvenile abuse and neglect, which means that I've practiced in nearly every courtroom in the courthouse. I believe that I am uniquely qualified to be judge. I understand the needs of various litigants and know how to listen to both sides of the facts and apply the law in a fair and impartial manner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Sullivan.
I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters for your effort tonight, and I'd like to thank NAACP and the News Gazette and the Illinois Public Media. This is a very strange night. I've been, as you might know, I've been running for judge now for 3 years. I've done probably 30 of these forums over the past 3 years, but none of them in my dining room. So this is very interesting. I am still running for judge because I believe we need someone just like me on the bench. That is why I have been applying for every judicial vacancy for, I think, 8 years at this point, why I have been running for judge for 3 years, and we're just 50 days away from this election. I believe that we need someone like me on the bench because of my personal life experience, because of my legal experience in the community, for a number of reasons, which I'm sure we'll get to in the questions. And I'm just excited for this opportunity to, from my dining room, come into your homes. Thank you so much.
All right. So we'll start with Ms. Sullivan. Can you describe your legal experience? And I'd like some detail, if you please.
Sure. I graduated from law school in 1996. My original job out of law school was with a civil legal aid agency called Land of Lincoln Legal Aid. At Land of Lincoln, where I worked for about 14 years, I did also, that's all civil. So those are things where you can't go to jail and you're not accused of a crime. It's things like family law, domestic violence, orders of protection, child support, paternity, all the kinds of things that happen in families. Also, all the kinds of things that happen with money if you're poor. So I would represent people in eviction defense, in foreclosure defense, things like that. I also spent about 9 years at the Champaign County Public Defender's Office, where I've been fully immersed in all kinds of criminal law, defense for adults, for juveniles, abuse and neglect, traffic. I have done all the things that happen in the courthouse with very few exceptions, and I've been fully immersed in very high volume caseloads for all of those types of law.
Thank you. And Ms. Kessler, could you describe your legal experience in some detail?
Yes, thank you. I also attended the University of Illinois College of Law. I stayed home for a couple of years, taking care of my babies when they were very young. And then I started my private practice. I've been in private practice, and I'm trying to count, but over a decade. Time flies, I guess, when you're having fun. And in that area, I've practiced in a variety of areas, which I enjoy, including family, guardianship, adoption, civil litigation, state matters, criminal, traffic, municipal law, as well as juvenile abuse and neglect. And during that private practice, for about 7 or 8 years of that private practice, I accepted a county contract from Champaign County to represent indigent clients in the areas of abuse and neglect for families that we commonly call DCFS cases. So that was a component of my private practice for those years. Thank you.
Thank you. And so, Ms. Kessler, what character and skills should a circuit judge have, and do you have those character and skills?
Thank you. Yes. A resident circuit judge hears cases potentially from any area of law. Judges apply the law, and so therefore they must be patient and even-tempered. They must have experience in a variety of legal areas, and they must have the education required to be a judge, as well as the ability to continue to educate themselves as the law evolves and changes. A judge must have the ability to manage a busy schedule, to make sure that time is managed well, and that all urgent matters are handled in a timely manner. Thank you.
Ms. Sullivan.
I think I remember the question. During these past very long years that I've been trying to get to the bench, because I think that we need someone like me on the bench, I've been evaluated by 3 different judicial screening committees, all of which have determined that I was well qualified for the role of judge. I've been the subject of 5 State Bar Association judicial advisory polls, all 5 of which have determined that I am recommended and qualified for the job. So at least the legal community and the people that are entrusted with making appointments believe that I'm qualified for this job. I think some of the most important qualifications for a judge is to be flexible. All the people that come into court are different. They have different needs. It's important to be able to accommodate those needs and to be flexible, to be accessible to the public, to be fair, obviously, to be impartial, to know the law, to be able to handle very high volume caseloads, which is what I have been doing for going on 24 years. So I definitely believe that I'm qualified for this job. There will be, as there always are, learning curves and things that I will need to do differently from a different part of the room than the room I've been in, but I believe I'm ready.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Sullivan, could you please describe one instance in which you faced an ethical problem and how you resolved it?
Well, I can hypothetically tell you all kinds of ethical problems there could be and how I would resolve them, but off the top of my head, I can't think of one that I determined to be a problem. It's usually pretty clear cut and pretty obvious. You just do the right thing. You can't repeat something that a client has told you in confidence, except for extremely limited reasons. So it's not really a conflict to follow those rules. You can't lie ever to anyone, not to the judge, not to a client, not to an opposing party, not to an opposing attorney. So it's just, it's hard for me to envision in my heart having something that I would identify as a conflict ethically, because it's very natural for me to do the right thing.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Kessler, could you describe one instance in which you faced an ethical problem and how you resolved it?
Yes, thank you. I agree. It is difficult to think of these times. The rules are important, and we must keep ourselves educated to those rules. And we must determine when there is a conflict and prepare ourselves not to be in there. We obviously, in my practice, I keep conflict checks, which means I keep lists of clients that I meet with. So when somebody calls me and says that they're looking for legal representation, I can clearly remember whether I've talked to a possible conflict, a possible opposing counsel, and that you're always, I guess as a lawyer, and I think Ms. Sullivan said this as well, as a lawyer, you're very conscious of these rules, and therefore you use them as a guidepost. You research the cases that have gone astray, shall we say, and you make yourself mindful of these circumstances and careful to always follow the principle. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Kessler. The Illinois State Bar Association rates candidates for judicial office. What was your rating and why should the public pay attention to it or not?
Thank you. Off the top of my head, I don't honestly remember. I looked at it and I stuck it to the side. The bar pool is not a reliable tool for voters to choose a candidate. There are over 820 registered attorneys in the Sixth Circuit. There are over 530 attorneys registered in Champaign County. I do know that when I looked, I wrote down that 72 attorneys answered questions about me. That is less than a 9% return rate. 9% is too small of a sample size to determine qualifications. Instead, voters themselves should look at candidates' experience, education, temperament, and qualifications. I believe all of these make me the best candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sullivan?
So I was recommended by the ISBA bar poll. I've been recommended in every ISBA bar poll. And I do think that's important. It's not the deal breaker for a voter, I don't think, but I do think it's an important piece of information because most voters don't have everyday access to what the lawyers do in their practice, how the lawyers behave in court, especially when lawyers are assigned to cases like Ms. Kessler was in the past with abuse and neglect, where the public can't come in and see what you're doing anyway. So there are very few people on the street who would have a very good feel for how the lawyers are respected in the legal community, for how they do their jobs. So I do think that it's valuable just for that piece of information. And I am very proud and very pleased that the legal community does believe that I'm qualified for this job, and they have recommended me that way in every cycle when I've applied.
Okay, thank you. There's been a lot of discussion about structural racism, especially in courts and policing. Do you think that there is such structural problems present in our circuit courts? In what ways specifically, and how could you address it as a circuit judge?
Yeah, are we back to me?
Yes.
Obviously, there is a structural racism problem in all the courts that I've been in. Even in communities that are very white communities, you can always find the people of color because they've been brought to traffic court. They've been brought to court for whatever reason, and it can't always just be a coincidence. There is definitely a structural problem with who gets arrested, with who gets charged, with what kind of charges are brought, with what kind of sentences they receive. It's a much bigger problem than any of us individually are going to be able to solve. It's important for us to recognize the problem and believe that there is a problem and be willing to deal with the problem. But as far as what can I do as a circuit judge, I can't wait to find out. I don't know how much of a difference I can make other than being conscientious about making sure that my rulings are fair and consistent and paying attention to what's happening and being aware in the back of my mind that I'm aware that there's this problem. Right at this moment, I don't, until I get to the other side of the courtroom, I really don't know how much difference I can make over there.
Okay. So Ms. Kessler, there's been discussion about structural racism, especially in courts and policing. Do you think that such structural prejudice is present in our circuit courts? In what ways specifically, and how could you address it as a circuit judge?
Thank you. As a candidate for judge, I am aware of gender, racial, and cultural bias. This will not be tolerated if I become judge. A judge must apply the law in a fair and impartial manner, and that means putting any bias at the door. It's not always easy to do, but I think it's important to be aware of our bias and to be aware of how it affects us, and to continually educate ourselves on that topic. Thank you.
For Ms. Kessler, here are some ideas which have been raised about the issues of structural racism: doing away with money bail, reducing sentences, especially for drug offenses, reducing prison terms in general. Do you have any opinions on these issues?
That's a difficult question. Obviously, I am asking to be a resident circuit judge, which means that I have to apply the law as it is. And my opinions on the law as well somewhat need to be left at the door, because my job is to apply the law fairly and not to include my bias. In that way, throughout the years as a private practice attorney, I have come across occasions where, of course, I think, wow, this should not be quite the way it is, or if I was in charge, I would do things differently. I think that's just human nature, that we think maybe there's a better system. However, as circuit judge, it will be my job to apply the law fair, impartially, and according to the statutes. Thank you.
Ms. Sullivan, you want me to repeat the question?
No, I think I got it. Being incarcerated is a huge deal, whether it's for a day, a week, a month, 5 years, 30 years, whatever it is. Being separated from your family, from your home, from all the things that you're trying to do with your life is a very big deal. And I personally, as a human being or as a judge, don't believe anyone should be incarcerated any longer than necessary. I don't think that your bail should be any higher than necessary. I think that you should have the expectation that you will not be locked up unless you need to be locked up, and you won't be locked up for any longer than you need to be locked up. I hope that that's how most people feel about this, because human beings have lives to live outside of custody, and being in custody is a very big traumatic event that we should avoid whenever we can avoid it. If we can't avoid it, if you need to be incarcerated, you need to be incarcerated, but it should be for whatever's necessary and not one instant more.
Okay. Ms. Sullivan, what can be done to give better access to the courts?
In the land of the coronavirus, we're experimenting with a lot of things. Suddenly, it turns out it is possible to do some things remotely. All the years until March of 2020, it seemed like it was very hard to get courts or judges or systems to adjust to that, but we are starting finally to adjust to that. And I think that's going to make the courts more accessible to a lot of people. Sadly, it's going to make courts less accessible to other people who do not have technological skills or equipment. We just need to always be remembering that the courthouse serves the public and all the people that are in the public, and try to meet them where they are. For some people, that's a language issue. For some people, that's a literacy issue. For some people, that's a transportation issue. I've spent 24 years of my life representing the poorest of the poor and becoming very aware of the challenges that they face and being able to be heard and get a fair resolution in the courts. And I believe bringing my perspective to the bench will greatly improve our system.
Okay, Ms. Kessler, what can be done to make to give better access to the courts?
Thank you. And I really do think that the Access to Justice initiative that we've had over the last several years has done a great deal to make greater access, as well as some movements to allow attorneys to do less involved cases, so that you can provide services beyond full service. And that's difficult. But I do think that having forms available, having the legal aid help desk has been very advantageous. And I think as a judge, having the patience when pro se clients come to the bench. Not always easy, because as lawyers, we sometimes speak a different language. And we're translators for our clients of that language. And we get used to the way we speak. And so when a pro se client comes, we need to approach with patience and compassion to assist them through that process. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Kessler, what do you think the biggest challenge facing the court system is?
That's difficult.
Well, you can give multiple challenges if you want.
Yes, you know, the job comes with very many challenges, and I think we've already spoken to several of those tonight. We've spoken to bias. We've spoken to the challenge of pro se litigants and being able to approach that in a calm and patient way. And we also have a change to technology. I really support the paperless courtroom, but with it comes the same set of challenges. Does it prevent some of our pro se litigants who may not have computers or scanners or other such devices? My children recently showed me that there is an app on your phone that you can scan documents, which I've shown to many of my clients. So some of our challenges are, as we move forward, do we move backward? And so I think the challenge is to balance both that use of technology as well as making sure that the courts are accessible. Thank you.
Okay. So Ms. Sullivan, what is the biggest challenge facing the court system?
I think 2020 has sort of put this on blast for all of us. The real problem is there are a lot of people in our country who do not believe our courts are fair. And we need our courts to be fair. So we need to mindfully, deliberately listen to the voices of the people who are quietly protesting, who are protesting from the rooftops. We need to listen, and we need to figure out how much of what they're saying there's a solution to, and what that solution is. I think in a number of ways, it's going to involve coming up with some alternatives to certain aspects of policing, for mental health services to be provided in situations where it's a mental health issue and not a criminal justice issue. I think that we're going to need alternatives to resolutions, where prison is not the appropriate resolution, but some type of community-based helping system that is going to get folks rehabilitated, help them get their license back, help them get work skills, help them get their lives on track. We're going to need to find some alternatives, and we're going to need to listen to the voices who are telling us they want help.
All right. Ms. Sullivan, in Champaign County, the judges, rather than the circuit clerk, have supervisory authority over the clerks in the courtroom, and this is unusual in Illinois. Do you think that the clerks ought to be returned to the authority of the elected circuit clerk?
That is an excellent question that I do not feel at this moment competent to answer. I've never worked on that side. So I don't know the history of how the current situation came to be, or why, or what the benefits are, or what the setbacks are. If I get to the other side, I will listen to the voices, and I will see what I think makes the most sense, and if I have a voice in that. I work with the judges, I work with the clerks, I work with the court clerks. All of these are very fine people doing a good job, and I don't know the answer to that question, but it's a very interesting question.
Okay. And Ms. Kessler, do you want me to repeat the question?
I believe I understood it. I also am not sure that I'm qualified to answer this question. I have no dissatisfaction with the clerks or the way that the system has been working. We adapted to the change. Obviously, we were used to one way for a long time. And so when the change was made, it took a little bit of getting used to. It's part of life. But the system has worked well going forward. So I have really no opinion at this point about returning such a thing.
Okay. So I have one last question, and then we'll go to closing. And this is, let's see. What else do you think the voters should know about you when they consider who to vote for? Ms. Kessler.
I'm hardworking. I'm dedicated. I'm known to put in the long hours and regularly work on the weekend. I also understand that when the average citizen walks through those courthouse doors, it is often their worst moment of the week, maybe even their year. And when I call a client to remind them about court on Tuesday, I know that it's only my Tuesday at 11 a.m., but for them, it may be a very stressful event. And walking forward with compassion and understanding goes a long way in that stressful environment. Thank you.
Okay. So Ms. Sullivan, what else do you think the voters should know about you as they consider who to vote for?
I suspect a lot of voters know a lot more about me than they even want to already, because I've been doing this race for so long. The reason that I started trying so hard to get to the other side of the courtroom, to get on the bench, was because I strongly, firmly still believe that we need a balanced bench. We need judges who come from different types of legal experience, judges who come from different types of life experience, judges from different political parties, judges of different genders, judges of all different kinds, because I believe collectively that makes our system better. Some of the unique things that I bring to the bench are I was widowed very young and was a single parent for 10 years. I would say the majority of people that come through our courthouse are single parents, either actively right now with small children or working their way through getting the kids a little bit farther along. Single parents have very difficult and almost incomprehensible challenges all day, every day, just with the getting everybody where they're supposed to be. And I understand those challenges, and I would like to try to help the court accommodate those challenges.
Okay, so now we have closing statements. And so Ms. Kessler, you start with the closing.
Thank you. I would like to thank the Champaign County League of Women Voters, the Champaign County branch of the NAACP, the News Gazette, the Illinois Public Media for hosting this forum tonight. I am asking for the public to vote for me in November. I also ask that individuals who will watch this event take a moment to follow my Facebook page. And I just want to say, I grew up here. I chose to raise my family here. I'm well aware of the challenges of our community. I'm dedicated to Champaign County and want to serve as resident circuit judge. In my private practice, I've covered a variety of different legal areas and have experience that has taken me to almost every single courtroom in the courthouse. I am prepared to be resident circuit judge, and I hope to see that happen this fall. Thank you.
And Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you. I continue to be on this mission to try to get to the bench, because I sincerely believe that that's what the public would benefit from, is having someone like me on the bench. Someone who is flexible, someone who is accessible, someone who is fair and impartial, someone who is qualified, someone who has a very broad understanding of all the different areas of law that come through the courthouse, and a very broad understanding of the kinds of people and the challenges that they are facing, the people that are coming into the courthouse. I believe that if I am on the other side, if I get to the bench, I believe I can make a measurable difference in our community. And I want that opportunity, and I'm asking for your vote in 50 days on November 3rd. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you to the candidates, and thanks once again to the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, the News Gazette, and Illinois Public Media for sponsoring this forum. Thanks to our timekeeper, Judy Iverson, who has kept us on schedule, and a special thanks to Jonathan Behrens of the League, who has put this series of forums together. Just a reminder, it's not too late to register to vote. Information is available on the League's website and the County Clerk's website. Please register and vote. And thank you for watching the forum. Good night.